not a renewable resource, but other renewable resources have to.
Right, I should probably explain what's going on. I'm here in Berlin because I was invited by a group of people that you have almost certainly never heard of called REN21. REN21 is... Wait, I'll let them explain.
So REN21 is a multi-stakeholder network. We collectively work together to push the energy transformation with renewables.
REN21 is headquartered in Paris with the United Nations Environment Programme, which means this trip kind of feels like graduating from model UN to real UN. And they do these academies where they bring together all these different stakeholders from energy industry, from governments, and get them to talk to each other about how we can basically accelerate the path towards renewable energy. So at the moment, I am at what feels very much like an academic conference.
Look at the view from my room. Look at that bridge. Right, we're going out there. Walk with me.
Today is the second day of proceedings. I didn't vlog yesterday because I wasn't doing anything active, although I kind of wish I had, because everything happened. One of the key organisers had to leave because of an emergency, so everyone's roles changed at the last minute. Somebody else's wife went into labour, and so they had to leave at the last minute. We had a fire scare at the hotel. Everything was happening. Now, if you've seen any of my vlogs from conferences before, you'll know there's a pretty standard format, right? You have a session of talks that lasts for like an hour and a half, there's a break, there's another session, there's lunch, and then eventually there'll be a poster session where you get lots of people, normally PhD students, presenting their research on like an A1 poster. This is different. Incidentally, the conference is happening literally just down the road from the Berlin Wall. Well, this big old chunk of the Berlin Wall. This is the East Side Gallery, where it's been repainted and is used as an outdoor art gallery. I was born just after this thing came down. I don't think my parents ever would have imagined that I'd be invited by some water experts to come talk to them in the shadow of this.
Understanding what's happening. There's a lot of information, there's a lot of knowledge, but it is collected and processed in different ways by different parties. So part of it is standardizing it, and when I say standardizing it, I'm not saying to make it all the same, but in a way that we can use it to really understand what is happening. So what is happening on the investment front? Why is investment not happening? How can we then start to address that? What is happening on the policy front? How are those policies being measured? How do you measure an effective policy? Are you looking at it via installed capacity? Are you looking at it from a socioeconomic perspective? They all have value, but it also makes it different. It also makes it difficult to be able to have a really clear picture about what's happening.
Anyway, this conference is different because yes, there have been talks and there have been some very, very interesting speakers actually, but the main component of this whole conference has been discussion. So the sessions which took place this morning, which I wasn't taking part in, were between these energy experts, these people from industries, people from government, people who make the policies, all taking part in discussion that I wouldn't have the slightest clue how to begin with. Compared to what I would consider to be traditional academic conferences, which have basically been science conferences, these questions don't have definite answers, which is why I think there aren't as many sessions on posters and talks, because it's not like someone can come up and say, oh, this is a problem I've been working on, and yeah, this is the solution, you're welcome. There is no one solution to how do we improve renewable energy uptake in transport. So instead, these sessions have been about sort of producing these documents at the end, which have been on display up in the room for this session, which I think was the transport section. All of the different sessions are based on different specific questions. And so you get all these really valuable perspectives coming together and actually providing an overall picture from the top down and the bottom up of these really complicated problems. So it's a really important thing that's going on here. Now, I know what you're thinking. Simon, you're not a policymaker, you're not an energy person, you are a dynamics guy, you've got a PhD in atmospheric physics, but it's not a useful one to this kind of conference. You know what? You're absolutely right. So why am I here? My session's in the afternoon. We just had the last session of the morning, which was bringing everyone back together again, reporting on the conclusions of the previous sessions, but also looking specifically at energy in cities. So 75% of all carbon emissions come from cities. So looking at how cities use energy is a really, really big problem. Two things which were interesting about that session. One, they had a really, really cool mic, which was like a box that you just had to hold near you and it would pick you up like an omnidirectional mic. And it was big enough, they just threw it over the room. So people were passing it from person to person whilst they're asking asking questions. That was fun. But another point that came up was the use of energy in cooking, which is like a really big use of energy globally. Everybody has to have it in one form or another. But when you think about it, say you want to introduce a new way of cooking, right? And you want it to be energy efficient. That then ties together all of the difficulties that these guys are facing on this panel. So it's a technological problem. What technology do you have to develop in order to make it? Is it going to be biogas? Is it going to be solar? What is the legislation? Are you allowed to make it? Are there going to be kind of subsidies? Are you going to be able to make it cheaper than the current fossil fuel alternatives? And then is there going to be the infrastructure to develop it and to deliver, for example, biogas? So it's all of these different factors. It really, really brings home, like in a little microcosm, why these are such difficult problems. Okay, that's enough academic stuff. I need lunch, which is this way.
Today there is unfortunately still the perception that renewable energy is much more expensive than fossil fuel. And the reality is, however, that this is really not the case. I mean, the evidence shows that cost-wise, renewable energy, in particular solar PV and wind, are the cheapest electricity generation. With regard to subsidies, actually, we do know, and this is really something which is complicated to calculate, but when we are looking to subsidies for fossil fuel and nuclear, the numbers differ a bit, but we still have 3 to 5 times higher subsidies for fossil fuel than what we have for renewable energy. And when we are looking, for instance, into solar PV and wind, today it is cheaper to invest into new renewable energy-based power production capacities than continuing operating existing coal-fired power plants, for instance, or gas plants. And this is something that's really a message which needs to be out there.
So academic conferences rise and fall by the quality of their food, and this stuff has been really good. As in
I've eaten enough of it that I've almost certainly put on a bunch of weight whilst here. Good job, Ren21, the food was so good. So there's an extra session that's just happening now after lunch before my session, and I just thought I'd come and introduce you to all the interns and people.
Not an intern.
All these people who have declared that they hate being on camera, and they get really nervous.
We can be on camera now. Wait.
Hang on, let me sit down. So you two are interns at the moment at Ren21, is that right?
Yes.
And what do you do?
Are you filming?
Maybe. I'm trying to make you not afraid. She said she was afraid of being on camera. I'm trying to show you that it's completely harmless. If I cover it up, right, what do you do at Ren21?
No, you have to. She doesn't even know what she's doing anymore.
Okay, time for my session.
And we're going to have initially some presentations, then we're going to have a little bit of a break. And then we are going to have a bit of a workshop where you guys are going to get to practice your own story.
Okay, so we're in the middle of the session that's happening right now. I gave a quick little talk. I didn't have a full presentation because basically I'm bad at replying to emails and I regret that deeply. But I gave a quick presentation talking basically about what I did and what I think the benefits of vlogging are. It's all stuff that people who watch this channel regularly will have heard before. If not, I did a TED talk about it. But what you see happening in the background is people acting on one of the other speakers, Tom, who was talking about the hero's journey and basically getting people to think as storytellers, which is what sort of another thing that I would love to have talked about. He was better at talking about it anyway. But they're developing stories, either about themselves as the hero or imagining some scenario. For example, president of X company decides they wake up and has to change absolutely everything to do with energy. And then how does that play out? And trying to basically make them engaging narrators and storytellers. So it's a really, really valuable skill. It's a really interesting workshop. I'm trying not to scare people off with the camera, but I definitely want to get some people on camera later to talk about what it is they're doing, which is going to go towards a video that I'm hopefully going to be working on roughly when this is released. Flavia, have you... Why does everyone at this conference not want to be on camera? Flavia is also a vlogger and a PhD student.
I'm not.
You are a PhD student.
I am, yes, but not a vlogger.
Flavia is the reason that I'm here. You invited me because you watched some of my stuff. You literally make a vlog. Very, very briefly, what is your thesis about? Because my audience knows me from the perspective of like a dynamics physics perspective, but what are you doing?
Okay, so my thesis is about offshore renewable energy governance. So when I say governance, people are a bit like, what are you talking about? And so I'm comparing 9 North Sea countries that are leaders in offshore wind and ocean energy installed capacity. I'm looking at policy instruments that are used to support them, what type of political decisions, so the motivation behind it, and also the actors involved, public and private.
How much of what you do is subsidies-based? Because the fossil fuel industry is hugely subsidized.
Yeah, true. There is support, especially in these countries that I'm studying, Germany, the UK. There is support. That's why offshore wind is doing so well. Ocean energy, not so much. But the funding that they have in the UK is actually coming from the European Commission. And you have
not for much longer.
The state of renewable energy in Europe, European Union, is that we have 17% of our energy consumption is coming from renewable energy. If you compare that to other big regions or countries in the world, this is quite a fair bit. The European Union has already set a target to have at least 20% in 2020, and it's looking that we're going to achieve this target. Now, only last week, the Parliament agreed on a new proposal, which just has to be ratified by the member states, but it's not going to change. That we're going to have 32% of renewable energy by 2030. Now, that's quite big, especially if you compare it to the rest of the world in terms of big countries. I mean, there are a couple of countries which have very good resources, like Brazil or Costa Rica, etc., which indeed are able to achieve 100% of renewable energy in certain sectors, or close to 100%. But this means that Europe is actually really set kind of relatively ambitious target for the next 12 years.
Well, today was a very interesting, if long day, as conference days tend to be. Balancing this new role that I have as like an academic, in the sense that like if this was a dynamics conference, I would want to take part and maybe not, I would probably want to give a poster on my thesis, but also listen to all the discussions. But I used to be doing that whilst like vlogging on the side. Now I am primarily at this conference a videographer and an academic on the side. I'm a recovering academic. So this has been kind of an interesting experience in that it is familiar but not. It's just different enough that it feels like uncharted territory. What's been cool has been seeing all the different stakeholders in energy actually talking to each other and seeing the academy accomplishing the mission, which is basically the most important thing that any group of people is doing on the planet, like actively trying to move the planet towards a sustainable future using renewable energy, moving us away from practices which we know are destructive. This kind of conversation that's happening in the convention hall over there is so unbelievably important. And so to see it happening in real time, like often felt like a real privilege to be bearing witness to these people meeting, these ideas meeting, and decisions being made and paths to action being kind of chalked out for future policy. That was really, really awesome to see. But that is the end of the very, very long day, and I need to do some work tonight because I always need to do work. So I'm gonna end the vlog. Thank you very, very much for watching. Thank you to Ren21 for inviting me out here to Berlin. It's a lovely city. I definitely just burped. I had a fantastic time whilst I was here. There's another day of the conference tomorrow, but it's only a half day because I'm going off to somewhere else, which might be a video, I don't know, probably not. So I'm gonna leave you with this one day as a conference experience, speaking to these world experts on energy, which was very rewarding, felt like a privilege to be here, and very, very fun atmosphere. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.